Richard Michael Cartwright was born on February 11, 1974, in Chicago, Illinois, USA. Cartwright had a prior felony conviction for unlawful possession of a controlled substance. He was sentenced to 2 years probation in February 1990. On the 1st of August 1986, Cartwright, then 22, was out with 2 friends, Dennis Haygood, 19, and Kelly Overstreet, 18, in Corpus Christi. When Nick Moreta pulled up in a black sports car, the trio, posing as homosexuals, invited him to go drinking with them at a seaside park. Moreta agreed, and the 4 drove off together. They parked in a cul-de-sac and walked down a hill to the Sowell. The men then robbed Moreta of his wallet, keys, watch, and an envelope containing cash. Once parked in the cul-de-sac, the 4 men went down a hill to the Sowell area, and Cartwright pulled out a gun and said, "This is a robbery. Put your hands on the cement." At the same time, one of the accomplices held a knife to Moreta's neck. Cartwright and his accomplices took Moreta's watch, keys, wallet, and an envelope containing cash. Then an accomplice cut Moreta's throat and Cartwright shot the victim. Cartwright, Kelly Overstreet, and Dennis Haygood met on August 1, 1996, and hatched a plan to seduce and rob a gay man on the bayfront. They thought such a victim would be an easy target, because he would not report the crime for fear of being outed. "We were going to stand out there and act like a male prostitute," Haygood told jurors during Cartwright's trial. The men approached Moreta at the downtown barge dock, near what is now the American Bank Center. Haygood said they found Moreta driving north along Shoreline Boulevard. "He winked at me," Haygood said. "We asked him if he wanted to go to a park and drink." Cartwright borrowed Overstreet's .38 caliber revolver and held Moreta at gunpoint, while the 3 of them took Moreta's valuables, about $180 in cash, a watch, and car keys. Haygood dashed back up the bluff to unlock Moreta's car, while Overstreet stabbed Moreta and slashed his throat. When Overstreet failed to kill Moreta, Cartwright shot him twice. Dr. Lloyd White, the Nueces County medical examiner at the time, said the bullets fired by Cartwright killed Moreta after striking a lung, his heart, and a large blood vessel that carries blood away from the heart. A fisherman and his grandson found Moreta's body the next day, when they went to the Sowell area to go fishing. Cartwright was charged with capital murder for Moreta's death. The state's case against Cartwright relied heavily on the testimony of his co-defendants and circumstantial evidence. Nevertheless, he was found guilty and sentenced to death. Lesser charges in connection with the robbery and murder of Moreta were brought against Overstreet and Haygood. They were convicted and received sentences of 50 years and 20 years, respectively. Their lesser charges and relatively light sentences were, in large part, due to their willingness to turn state's evidence against Cartwright. Since arrest, Cartwright has continuously maintained his innocence. He contends that Overstreet and Haygood are responsible for Moreta's death. At trial, evidence was presented that indicated that the gun used in the commission of the robbery and murder of Moreta belonged to either Overstreet or Haygood. A medical examiner testified that when multiple people are involved in a crime in which gunfire occurs, it is typically the owner of the gun that does the shooting. Additionally, the medical examiner stated that he believed that Moreta was attacked by 2 individuals. In his opinion, the strong familiarity that Overstreet and Haygood possessed with one another made them the most likely assailants, not Cartwright, who they had met only 1 week prior. During closing argument at the guilt-innocence phase, the prosecutor argued, without objection by defense counsel, Dr. Rupp would change his mind anytime you asked him a different way. The question. I mean, isn't it kind of funny how the defense lawyer says, Dr. Rupp, I wanna bring you up here as an expert, and here I'm giving you the autopsy report and the pictures, and the defense neglects to give him any other information? Not one scrap of evidence. Not one statement from a police officer or report from a police officer or identification officer. Not one statement from a witness. Not even what happened in court. Remember I said, Dr. Rupp, if you heard that somebody said that they heard this defendant admit to the crime, would that change your mind? He goes, sure it would change my mind. Sure it would change my mind. The defense lawyer is trying to blindside you by putting on this so-called expert on human behavior with not enough information. Not enough information. And every time I talked to Dr. Rupp, he kept saying, I wasn't asked that. I wasn't asked that. I was only asked this. Well, don't you think that's kind of important, Dr. Rupp, to know the whole story? You folks got the whole story. How come he didn't? How come the defense lawyer didn't have the courtesy to give him all the information? A little sneaky, isn't it? Little sneaky. Cartwright argues that his trial counsel rendered ineffective assistance by failing to object to the above-quoted argument attacking the veracity of defense counsel. In his affidavit presented to the state habeas court, defense counsel stated that, although he felt that the prosecutor's comments about him being a little sneaky were improper, he did not feel that they were sufficiently damaging to object. He also did not want to object and thereby call the remarks to the attention of the jury. The state habeas court found that the prosecutor's reference to defense counsel as being sneaky was improper, but that the comment did not harm Cartwright's defense, and that counsel's decision not to object was reasonable trial strategy. The district court held that the state court's findings were presumptively correct, and that Cartwright had not rebutted them with clear and convincing evidence. The district court agreed that the prosecutor's comment about defense counsel being sneaky was improper, but concluded that counsel made a legitimate strategic decision not to object, and that the comment did not infect the entire trial with undue unfairness. Reasonable jurists would not conclude that the district court's assessment of this claim was debatable or wrong. In 1997, Cartwright was convicted of capital murder and sentenced to death. The Texas Court of Criminal Appeals affirmed Cartwright's conviction and sentence. Cartwright's petition for writ of certiorari was denied by the U.S. Supreme Court in November 1999. Cartwright filed a petition for state writ of habeas corpus in July 1998. The Court of Criminal Appeals denied his petition. Cartwright filed a petition for writ of habeas corpus in federal district court in September 2002, and in July 2003, the district court denied Cartwright's petition for federal habeas relief. Cartwright later filed an application for a certificate of appealability in the 5th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals, which denied the application. The U.S. Supreme Court denied Cartwright's petition for certiorari review on January 24, 2005. Richard Michael Cartwright, 31, was executed by lethal injection on the 19th of May 2005 in Huntsville, Texas for the robbery and murder of a 37-year-old man. In a brief final statement, Richard Cartwright thanked his friends and family for their support. I want to apologize to the victim's family for any pain and suffering I caused them, he said. Then he urged his fellow death row inmates to just keep your heads up and stay strong. Cartwright, 31, a Chicago native, apologized to his victim's family before a lethal combination of chemicals began flowing into his arm. He was pronounced dead 8 minutes later. At 6:16 p.m. he delivered a brief final statement, saying, "I just want to thank all my friends and family who gave me support these past 8 years. I want to apologize to the victim's family for any pain and suffering I caused." He also told his fellow inmates to keep your heads up and stay strong. For his final meal, he requested fried chicken, a cheeseburger, onion rings, French fries, bacon, sausage, cheesecake and cinnamon rolls. Cartwright becomes the state's 344th inmate put to death by lethal injection, the 8th that year. He also is the second person to die for Annacis County killing that year. Thank you for